Finally, I'm strong enough to fight off Lord Byron if he tries a direct attack. As long as House Raven keeps its distance, we have a real chance at surviving the upcoming nobility examination. Suddenly, a guard approached the family celebration. Lord Hayfield, Baylor Graham is at the front door. He wishes to greet you and present a gift to young Nathan. Baylor? Marvelous. Let him come join us then. Baylor skittishly entered the room and paid his respects to Lord Ulrich by kneeling. Good morning, my lord. It's a pleasure to be with you all once more. Get off your butt, Baylor. Remember that you're always welcome here among us. What gift do you have for Nathan this year? I've less of a traditional gift this year. Really, I've come to praise his own spiritual fighting advancement and thank him for his help in improving my own. Oh, isn't that sweet of you? You've likely seen more of my son's improvement over these past few years than I have, given my own training regimen. Tell me, do you think he'll pass the spiritual warrior examination in a few months? Baylor looked over at Nathan to see if Ulrich was joking, but clearly he was not. Baylor smiled mischievously at his friend's father. I wouldn't worry about that at all, Lord Hayfield. In fact, if I were a gambler, I'd bet every penny I had that your son would come in the top 5 placements. Huh, is that so? Ulrich looked over at Nathan with a curious expression. Nathan simply shrugged his shoulders. Absolutely, sir. I've strictly followed the training plan he wrote for me 2 years ago, and I've already advanced multiple tiers to beginner level 5. His own training is many times more intense than mine is, so I can only imagine how strong he's become. All eyes fell on Nathan as he finished eating his piece of cake, uncomfortable with his friend's heavy praise. Well, I hope for his sake you're right, Baylor. Ulrich's laughter boomed through the dining room as he ruffled his son's hair. Nathan finally chimed in. He had, of course, used his improved eyesight and hearing to watch his friend from afar as he followed Nathan's instructions and was extremely pleased with his friend's resolve. Father, Baylor here is far too kind, but it is true that he himself has made tremendous progress over the past 2 years. For this reason, Baylor, I'd like you to take this. Nathan casually pulled a small scroll out of his pocket and handed it to Baylor. Baylor opened the scroll as all eyes in the room looked at him. Amelia couldn't bear the tension. Well, what is it, Baylor? What has Nathan given you? Nathan grinned as Baylor marveled at the sketches on the scroll. I gave him a spiritual fighting technique, a rare one that, if he practices regularly, should get him up to a beginner level 6 in half a year's time. Ulrich's brow furrowed. What? What technique is this? Baylor snapped out of his revelry and turned the scroll around for all to admire. The Demonic Parry technique. Ulrich's jaw dropped. How could his son know such a unique medium-strength technique at such a young age? Nathan, lad, where did you get this scroll? I wrote it out myself, Father. Nathan grinned and said nothing more. In his past life, he had collected dozens of sword-fighting techniques, and he knew that this lower medium-level skill would help his weaker friend a lot. Based on Nathan's knowledge of the Graham family's spiritual fighting history, he knew that this was perhaps the strongest technique any of them had ever received, and might help them further distinguish themselves as a strong local warrior family. Before Ulrich could respond to his son's mysteriously vague words, Baylor rolled up the scroll and saluted Nathan as a student would his teacher. Thank you, Nathan. I swear to you, I'll learn this technique and grow as strong as I possibly can. Perhaps one day, my strength can be a help to the House Hayfield. Oh yeah, and happy birthday. With that, Baylor snatched up a piece of cake and scurried out of the room. Amelia chuckled as she stood up and shook her head. Baylor, wait. Bring some cake to your father as well. We have far too much of it already. Here, old Billy, grab the cake. Ulrich and Nathan shared a chuckle as Amelia suddenly disappeared from the room with old Billy trailing behind her with the birthday cake. Bam! As the door shut behind them, the dining hall grew quiet, and Ulrich's gaze returned to his son. Tell me, lad, last I checked, you've only ever trained with wooden swords. Where did you learn such a technique? And before you answer me, don't just say you found it in your school's library. Nathan gulped at his father's unrelenting gaze. He hated lying to his father, but there were some things better left unsaid between them. But what if I did find the demonic parry technique in the library, father? Is that truly what happened? Yes. Besides, it's not that big a deal. It'll take Baylor months before he's able to use it yet, and even then, it's not that strong. I'm canny enough to know our enemies would come for him had he been given a more powerful sword-fighting style. Ulrich sighed as he nodded his head. He knew Nathan was telling the truth when it came to sword-fighting techniques. Demonic parry was useful in some situations, but it was nothing compared to the more powerful techniques that the nobility sought out and coveted. Nathan's gift had been well thought out, at least. Nobody would bother killing Baylor in order to steal that lowly scroll. Very well, then. But is it true what Baylor says about you being strong enough to place high in the spiritual warrior examinations? Ulrich thought that his son might be a high-level beginner, or at best, the lowest level of the apprentice stage. But it was utterly unthinkable that his son might be at an even higher level than he was in the master stage. What do you believe, father? Do you think I have a shot at a high placement? Don't toy with your old man, lad. I know you must be at least an upper-level beginner. Ulrich watched to see his son's reaction. If my son really is an upper-level beginner, he will at least someday reach a higher level of the apprentice stage. In truth, however, I suspect my son's talents will someday propel him to the lower end of the master levels. Ever since the accident, he's had a look in his eye that urges me to think that he's got a bright future ahead of him. He had no way of knowing that Nathan was already well beyond the strength he someday wished his son would reach. However, Nathan wasn't certain he wanted his father to know exactly how strong he was just yet. In truth, father, I'm not certain what level I am at the moment. I guess I'll just have to do the exam and see what happens. Nathan had to stifle a chuckle. He knew in his heart that the examination was barely a concern at all. He had zero doubts about his strength when compared to others of his own age. Ulrich rose from his chair and finally noticed the icing on his beard. He jokingly scolded his son as he washed his face clean in a saucer of water. Enough beating around the bush. I'm certain you're stronger than Baylor is. With that in mind, I have no doubt you'll do us all proud, regardless of your placement number. Anyways, I've much work to do. Happy birthday, Nathan. Ulrich turned to leave the room, but as he opened the door, Nathan also stood. Father, please, before you go, I've also got a gift for you. Ulrich's brow raised when he turned to see Nathan offering up another scroll from his pocket. Hey, you little rascal. I'm the one who's supposed to get you gifts on your birthday. How dare you grant me a new sword technique? But Ulrich never finished his joke. Instead, his eyes soared over the sketches on the scroll, amazed by the power of the movements. The elemental slice technique? This is far from a basic sword art technique. Hey, where did you... Before Ulrich could finish his sentence, he realized Nathan had already slipped out of the room. Ulrich could only chuckle as he shook his head. Nathan, lad, you're full of surprises. Baylor, Graham, where have you been? These farming tools don't sell themselves, you know. Baylor caught his breath and leaned against a tree as his father, Podrick, approached him. Baylor wiped the sweat from his brow, threw his wooden training sword into a bush, and pretended to be stretching. Baylor has spent the morning struggling to learn the very first movements of the demonic parry technique. He'd grown frustrated as the sun had risen high into the sky and had completely forgotten about his duties back at his father's shop. "Father, what a delight to see you. I was just stretching, warming up to sell some plows." "I suppose you'd like me to believe that wooden training sword grew out of that bush over there and didn't come from the Hayfield boy? Ever since young Master Nathan's birthday, you've been shirking your duties." Podrick loomed over his son as Baylor reluctantly nodded his head. "I'm sorry, Father. I'll come with you at once." Podrick had used up his entire life savings to be able to afford to send his son to Godricshall to attend the Academy of the Mystic Blades. When he found out that his son had withdrawn from the school, he was furious. "Sure, he did the honorable thing, sticking by the Hayfields, but what about the Graham family's honor? What about the fortune I spent on his future that's gone down the drain? I swear, sometimes that strange son of mine seems to only think of himself. If I'm not careful, he'll be the end of me." Although Podrick was eternally loyal to House Hayfield and had no ill will toward Nathan, he couldn't help but resent what had happened. It had taken a decade for Podrick to raise the funds they had needed to give Baylor a chance at a better life, and now, with the decline of the Hayfield family even more prominent, Podrick's shipments of goods were often held up by bureaucrats or stolen by thieves. Even when the shipments weren't detained, Podrick couldn't help but notice the influx of impoverished beggars pleading for food on roads into and out of town. He did his best to help when he could, but that meant he wasn't exactly making money hand over fist. At one point, Podrick had even considered starting over and leaving Dunshire for another hamlet across the fiefdom. But when he saw his son begin to train on his own, he realized there was still a slim chance for Baylor to become the warrior he had always wished to be. After all, in the past 2 years, Baylor had improved by 2 levels in the time it took most other students to improve by only half a level. So even now, after everything, he still supported Baylor's dreams, as long as he worked toward them after hours when the family shop was closed. As Podrick saw Baylor's head lower, he couldn't help but sigh. "Hold on a second. You might as well grab your practice sword before we return." Baylor perked up, nodded, and ran into the bushes to retrieve his wooden sword. "So, son, tell me, how was young Master Nathan's birthday party? What spiritual fighting level has he reached now?" Baylor chuckled as he returned from the bushes with his wooden sword and did a few practice moves, slashing at the air. "Oh, I'm not sure, but whatever it is, it's much stronger than mine. That much I'm certain of." Podrick's eyes widened when he saw his son's sword strikes. "Of course. Naturally, that makes a lot of sense. Tell me, Baylor, what blade work have you been practicing? Where did you learn to strike like that?" Podrick's family only knew of 2 fairly weak sword styles, and clearly this was not one of them. Whatever Baylor's movements were, they weren't traditional Graham family fighting techniques. "Oh, this? This is the Demonic Parry technique. Pretty cool, huh? Nathan gifted it to me at his birthday celebration. He told me to practice it every day until I reached beginner level 6. Here, want to see it?" The Baylor withdrew the scroll from his pocket and showed it to his father. Podrick's eyes widened. He was silent for a long time, then handed the scroll back to his son. "Very well, then. I'm off." Podrick turned and started walking back toward town. "Father, wait! I thought you needed me at the shop." "Forget the shop. Nathan Hayfield has granted you a powerful fighting form. You must master it as soon as possible. Is that understood?" "Yes, Father, but where are you going?" "To thank him properly, you silly goose of a son. You have no idea how valuable this new form is. As your father, it's my duty to make it known to the Hayfields how thankful House Graham truly is for their generosity." As Podrick retreated toward the hamlet, all Baylor could do was shrug and go back to practicing his strikes. This time, he focused on a particularly large elm tree. As the tree began to shake under his blows, Baylor couldn't help but smile. Podrick knocked on the front door of the Hayfield manor until finally a guard opened up. "What's the matter, Podrick?" "Please, I must speak with Lord Ulrich and Nathan as soon as possible." The guard left the door for a moment as Podrick anxiously waited with bated breath. Soon the guard returned and motioned for him to enter. "His lordship is upstairs, in his chambers." Podrick nodded and thought about what he was going to say. Spiritual sword-fighting techniques were not something most ordinary people had access to. Most noble families inherited them from their ancestors and only had knowledge of a couple of different styles. For a commoner family like the Grahams to have any at all was extremely fortunate. Therefore, the gift of this magnitude was out of the ordinary, and the Grahams would forever view the technique as a precious family heirloom. It was possible that such a powerful technique could one day lead to the Graham family's ascension into nobility through the nobility examination. If they practiced this style properly for generations, perhaps it was indeed possible for their family name to rise above a simple merchant's status. It was for these reasons that Podrick had prepared a number of gifts from his shop on his way over to the Hayfield manor. There were few things the Hayfields did not possess in town, given the fact that they ruled over the small hamlet, but Podrick was certain at least one gift to Amelia would spark joy in them all. Finally, Podrick stood before Ulrich in his chambers, having just expressed his reasoning for coming over. "My dear friend Podrick, why make such a fuss over such a small matter?" "My lord Ulrich, the matter may be small to you, but to my family, it is a massive honor. I witnessed firsthand the movements Nathan gave my son. I do not exaggerate when I say I was moved by its power." It's nothing. I'm happy to hear you like it, that's all. But I feel that I have not done enough to deserve this gift, my lord. We have made no contributions worthy of such a reward." "Podrick, please. This is a matter between children. I'm glad it happened, but still, as adults, it should mean little to us." Podrick smiled and nodded his head. "Of course, my lord. You're correct, but then, where is young Master Nathan? I wish to thank him personally as well." "Normally, he'd be out training somewhere in the wilderness, but today, I believe he's wrapping things up in the courtyard, so he can join his sister for lunch. Come, why don't you stay and have a drink with us?" "As your lordship commands. I would be honored to sit with you." Ulrich chuckled at his old friend's formality. After all, they had grown up together in Dunshire and had committed much mischief together in their youth. "Enough with his lordship, Podrick. Decades ago, we tipped cows together. Call me Ulrich, or call me nothing." "As your lordship sure, Ulrich. Whatever you say." With that, the two men stood, and Ulrich flung an arm around Podrick's shoulder, guiding him down toward the dining room while he recalled their misadventures together. Out in the courtyard, Nathan knew it was time to stop his afternoon training when he heard his father's booming laughter. Across the manor in the courtyard, Nathan finished his last strike with his practice sword. He slowed his breathing as he wiped sweat from his face with a small, clean rag. As he set the rag down, he found Amelia standing right in front of him with a smile on her face. Nathan couldn't help but flinch at her sudden appearance as she giggled. "All that training, and I still got the drop on you, huh? I knew you were here. I just didn't expect you to be right in front of me like that." "Sure you did. Anyway, lunch is ready." Nathan grinned. "Amelia, you know you don't have to wait up to eat lunch with me every day." "What am I supposed to do? Eat alone and stare at the family tapestry? It's not even that interesting anyway." "What? Is the Hayfield family history not thrilling enough for you?" "Unfortunately, I'm worried it's about to be." "Hey, You're probably right. In a few months' time, I fear there will be many more battles inscribed on it. As long as they show you and Father standing victorious, I won't mind. Anyway, enough of politics. I'm hungry enough that I'll start without you and eat up all the pies myself. Amelia rushed inside without another word, as Nathan shook his head and slowly wiped the sweat from his arms. I'm not joking. Hey, wait a second. I'm coming. Nathan couldn't help but speed up his dry-off. He threw down his wooden sword toward an apple tree on the edge of the courtyard. Crack! The wooden blade embedded itself perfectly into a scarred spot in the trunk where Nathan kept it. Nathan turned and rushed after his sister into the manor. Amelia laughed dotingly over her brother as he entered the dining room behind her and raced her to the table. In reality, Amelia always waited for her brother before she ate, whether it was breakfast, lunch, or dinner. She had no interest in eating without him. Even when Nathan's training made him hours late, he found her patiently waiting by torchlight at the supper table. After a few nights of this, Nathan had quickly learned how to maximize his efficiency while training in order to make it to meals on time. Here, let me fix that for you. Amelia, stop it, please. I'm not a child anymore. Just hold still a moment, then we'll eat. Nathan stewed as Amelia tried in vain to slick down a cowlick in his hair. Amelia was nearly 6 years older than Nathan, and was thus almost 20 years old. Although their father would never force Amelia to marry someone she detested, it was nearly the time in a woman's life when she would typically be urged to find a husband. In the kingdom of Calandria, it was common for lords to demand their daughters marry at some point in their early 20s. But on top of their father's common sense that such things were foolish, they all knew that Amelia couldn't be forced to do anything she disagreed with. Besides, as far as Nathan knew, Amelia had yet to meet a suitor she didn't openly detest, let alone like. Over the past 2 years, she'd rejected nearly every eligible bachelor in town. At one point, Ulrich had tried to tell her to give the boys a chance, so she had challenged them to a competition. If any man in town could dress a minor wound faster than she could, she would let them take her out to dinner. So far, not in the least bit due to Sir Yara Shira's teachings, she had yet to leave the manor for a dinner date in town. Instead, Amelia occupied her time with her family. Outside of the hours at the medicine garden or with Sir Yara, Amelia mothered Nathan and took care of arranging the household for their father. This made both Nathan and Ulrich feel extremely guilty. They both felt as if they were holding her back. Nathan suddenly grimaced as he ate his food. Is everything all right, Nathan? I know I might have overcooked things a bit today. No, not at all. It's perfect, Amelia. Thank you for lunch. Why should she have to feed us and look after us each and every day? She should be going off and living her own life. Suddenly, a family guard approached them. Apologies, my lady and young master, but your father requests your presence immediately in the living room. Nathan and Amelia looked at each other with puzzled expressions. A glass shattered. As Nathan and Amelia entered the living room, they immediately knew that something was off. Ulrich's wine glass lay shattered on the floor, as if he'd been shocked by something unexpected. Nathan approached his father and Podrick, both of whom were seated at a table across from 2 other people. From their position, Nathan couldn't see the faces of these 2 others. As the 2 turned around to meet his gaze, Nathan saw that they were a father and son. Other than that, and the fact that they were both dressed extravagantly in white robes, Nathan knew nothing about them. Podrick stood up as they came closer and formally saluted them both. Young Master Hayfield and Lady Hayfield, it is an honor to be in your presence. I'm sorry to disrupt your meal. Nathan nodded his head and narrowed his eyes. Podrick's always formal at first, but in a matter of moments, he'd usually be chuckling along to Father's jokes. But this time feels different, like he's afraid of being too casual around those 2. Wherever they are, They're definitely outsiders. Ulrich cleared his voice as he introduced Nathan to the two strangers in white. Nathan, this is Carlton Crane and his son John. They're traveling merchants who once lived in Dunshire before you were born. Oh, please, Ulrich. You make us sound as if we were nothing more than pence-pishing Podrick over there. House Crane runs one of the wealthiest merchant businesses in all of Godric's land. It would be an exaggeration to say that our number of followers and our hordes of riches rival even some of the stronger noble families in the fiefdom. You might consider us nomadic lords without the title, or now, at least. Nathan tried to appear impressed, so as not to embarrass his father or cause an issue. Wow, that is remarkable. Good for you. Carlton plastered on a smile and nodded, covering up his vile innermost thoughts. What a cocky little runt. Once House Raven's done with you, I'll be sure to wipe that smirk off your face. If they only knew that I recently discovered that my family was, in fact, distantly related to the High Lord Raven himself. Carlton was wise enough to know that the High Lord Raven had suddenly found a shared ancestor with the Cranes solely because of his desire to destroy the Hayfields, but nevertheless, the connection was real. If House Raven backed the Cranes and convinced them to challenge the Hayfields for their seat at the nobility examinations, the Ravens would essentially gain access to the medicinal gardens without directly confronting the Hayfields in front of the Lightstones. Carlton chuckled to himself as he thought of the High Lord Raven's cunning. Even after Mr. Crane promised Lord Byron Clay his vengeance, he'd still rather give House Crane a chance at taking the Hayfields down first, all so he can avoid dirtying his hands. What a crafty ally I've made. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Nathan. My son John here has told me many great things about your exploits. It was then Nathan finally recognized John from the Academy of the Mystic Blades. He had always been a meat-headed lackey of Cedric Raven. There were even a number of times Nathan remembered John bullying him. Whether it was laughing at Jason's cruel jokes or spreading unfounded rumors about his father and sister, all Nathan knew for certain was that he instantly disliked John, who scoffed at the simple room as if it were crawling with worms. Ulrich coughed uncomfortably. So, Carlton, what brings you to my manor? The future of the hamlet of Dunshire, my lord. Its continued safety is all that I wish to discuss.
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.